You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and I'm joined this week on the podcast by John Stevenson. John, how's it going?
It is going pretty well. How about you?
It is good. It's been a very busy week for me, and this, we're kind of recording out of sequence here, and this is going to release in something like 5 hours. And typically we're not a very newsy podcast, but there was actually, for a random week in July, there was a pretty substantial bit of like roller coaster and theme park news. And in case you weren't following along on Coaster101.com, which shame on you for not reading articles on the internet, we wanted to recap just a couple of the week's big stories. And with that, the biggest news of the week, obviously, is coming to us from Six Flags Fiesta Texas down in San Antonio. They have kind of thrown down the gauntlet with the first big coaster announcement for 2022 that we didn't already know was happening. I know there are coasters that were announced in 2019, 2020. Again, weird time frame. But Six Flags Fiesta Texas has announced Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger. It's a dive coaster from B&M. And John, when this was announced, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of had to do a double take because I was so surprised. I mean, it will have been 10 years since Six Flags built a B&M coaster. Of course, the last was X-Flight at Six Flags Great America. So this is an end to a very long drought for this manufacturer in the Six Flags chain. So I'm so excited. I love dive coasters. I think it's a great fit for that park. But yeah, it really caught me off guard. I was just not expecting it at all. So it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, when the park started teasing that, they had the steampunk characters, and, say what you want about steampunk. It might be a trope that's a little overused in theme parks these days, but they've got a first here. I'm looking at the numbers right now. It's got a top speed 60 miles per hour. It's 150 feet tall, 2,500 feet long. And it's got the first ever from B&M, a beyond vertical drop on a dive coaster. Then it looks like it goes into an Immelman inversion and kind of has a zero-G roll. So kind of another new element you don't typically see on a dive coaster. And then it's got what they're calling an extreme airtime hill and a wild bank turn and a high-speed spiral, which is, to me, just looks like a fancy way to say the word helix. I think, Six Flags Fiesta Texas is a park that we were going to go to, again, 2020 being 2020. I feel like it's a park that's just I don't want to say proving ground for the Six Flags chain, but they've got a very impressive, unique coaster lineup there for sure.
Yeah. And and a few years ago, I would have said that Six Flags Great America was that park because it was dating all the way back to the early 90s when Iron Wolf opened. It was B&M's first coaster, and then Batman the Ride, and then X-Flight, and then Goliath. I mean, just repeatedly, that seemed to be kind of the testing grounds for the chain because, of course, X-Flight was the first and last wing coaster, B&M wing coaster in the chain. So, and I would have guessed that that park would have been the recipient of a dive coaster just because it is kind of a landlocked park, not a lot of space, and so this looks like a pretty compact model. So, but yeah, I think Six Flags Fiesta Texas has kind of taken that crown, and they have a very, very interesting lineup. Yeah, and I think too, and I know a lot of people were commenting on this with Corey there, that this would be an excellent opportunity, especially for a coaster named Cliffhanger. So it's a little disappointing that wasn't taken advantage of, but I'm just so excited to see a B&M coaster opening not only at a Six Flags park, but just in the U.S. in general. I think it's exciting. Hopefully, this will kind of start a wave of B&M coasters within the Six Flags chain.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the like you said, it's kind of that proving ground. And if it's Six Flags Fiesta Texas, obviously they're a park that kind of they love coaster enthusiasts. I know they do a couple of big enthusiast events each year for specifically for enthusiasts. And this coaster was started teasing at an enthusiast event. They had another event that was kind of like an anniversary event where Jeffrey Siebert, the park president, announced the coaster. So as far as 2022 announcements go, it is certainly of the coasters we didn't already know about as we kind of get back to this more normalized like announcement cycle and announcement season. Obviously, as we get into August and September, the new attractions are going to start kind of creeping in. But outside of coasters that were kind of pushed, like Aquaman at Six Flags Over Texas, or Sierra Sidewinder, or Tron at Disney, or Guardians at Disney. I think those have both been pushed to 2022, but this is the first kind of surprise we didn't really know what was happening announcement. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that normal cycle. Nature is healing, as they say.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because historically, and I'm not 100, I don't recall if they did it this past year again with everything being so kind of thrown off balance. But Six Flags has always had that announcement day, which for me and so many other enthusiasts is kind of like Christmas Day. Announcing all of these new rides at all of their parks. So it's interesting that this is kind of the anomaly, and I wonder if they'll still have that announcement day, or maybe they're shifting to this individual on a park by park kind of holding their own announcements, or maybe just the headliner attraction openings will be the ones to have their own announcement day. So it'll be interesting to see what other Six Flags parks announce as we move forward toward the end of the year, and of course the 2022 season.
Yeah, depending on what corners of the internet you frequent, there's track at Six Flags Magic Mountain that appears to be a single rail of some sort, but that's not our shtick on this podcast. We talk about stuff that's announced. So anyway, you can find that if you look hard enough, I feel like. But speaking on rumors and speculation, the next kind of news item we want to touch on real quick is what King's Dominion is doing with these teases. And King's Dominion, to me, that's a park that's kind of my home away from home, as it were. I mean, I've recently moved to the Charlotte area, but it's still only about a 4.5 hour drive to King's Dominion. So they're announcing their new ride. I'm assuming it's a new ride. Again, depending on where you frequent on the internet, you kind of know what's coming. But back in June, these mysterious crates, or earlier in the year even, I think somebody sent us a picture of them in June, but they started with these crates that they sent to the Livingston and Company, which is the name of a former restaurant at King's Dominion, which I learned actually shares the Boo Blasters building. I had no idea, and I had to like look at this on a Google map, and I was like shook. But it's from Croft Industries, and if you do the math here, it's Laura Croft, which is Tomb Raider, their Huss Top Spin that they recently got rid of. I believe the attraction is going to go there, but they've been teasing a little bit with these. They've just been throwing out map coordinates on social media. And, bravo to the park for having a little fun with it. The first set of coordinates was for, Chichen Itza, Mexico. And then we got some new coordinates for the Snake Temple in Malaysia. We've got the lost city of Pompeii, and most recently over the weekend we got Stonehenge. And there's a good best way to put this. It's a ruinous, kind of ties into the old theme of the crypt. And I'm excited to see what King's Dominion does here. And again, this is something if you've been in the park, you kind of have you've been able to see the teases, or if you know where to look when you exit certain roller coasters at the front of the park, you've seen the pieces on the ground for a while now. But that's I think King's Dominion. I'm excited. That was kind of a bummer that when they removed Volcano and then we're starting to tease other things, and then when Volcano was gone, they just said the crypt was gone, and that kind of frees up a lot of space. So I think whatever King's Dominion does in this area, I think it's going to be pretty great. What do you think, John?
Yeah, and kudos to the park for making that extra effort. I mean, I know parks, staff and staffing in general across the industry, with staffing shortages, and I think it says a lot about the park that even despite those challenges, they're still putting the effort and the time into a teaser campaign like this. So I think it's really exciting what they're doing, very creative, and it definitely builds up the hype and the excitement over this ride. And with those attractions at the park that we've lost over the past couple of years, I mean, it's definitely there's a void, and I think hopefully whatever it is, and again, depending on where you frequent the internet, you have an idea, but I think whatever it is, it's going to be, it's going to be a much needed addition to the park after the loss of those two thrill rides.
And then the other video I really want to touch on that was kind of part of these teaser campaigns is the bamboo. It says how many hacks does it take to get to the center of a bamboo shoot? And Maggie, if you're listening to this podcast, we got to talk about your bamboo hacking form. I know you hacked at it 22 times, so there's a hint. It's going to open next year, whatever this is, air quotes, whatever this is going to open next year. But those hacks were a little weak. We gotta work on your bamboo chopping ability. That's all. And then arguably just as big of news as Six Flags Fiesta Texas Doctor Diabolical's cliffhanger, we have another new roller coaster announcement for Central Florida. And John, I know you were really excited about this, so please take it away.
Yes, so we learned earlier this week that the Peppa Pig theme park, which I still am in awe that's even happening. I was familiar of the show just by name. It's not something I believe I've ever watched, at least by choice, but they announced that the park will be opening. The name of the coaster is, let's see, I don't want to botch this, Daddy Pig's Roller Coaster. And the park describes it as taking a ride with Daddy Pig in his recognizable red car, and to go on an unexpected adventure when Mr. Bull's digging up the road, end quote, sends you on a curvy exploration of Daddy Pig's new shortcut. This family friend thrill ride is the perfect first roller coaster for brave little piggies. Um, and so, from the concept art and from the information that we've been sent, it is a Zamperla coaster that is going to have, according to Zamperla's Instagram account, might just have a lift and a launch. So, I think that might be the first, at least for a smaller family coaster like this. So, it's definitely interesting that it has that kind of that twist on it. And then they also announced a slew of other rides. So it's generally a lot of family friendly, kid friendly attractions. Peppa Pig's balloon ride, kind of the traditional tower balloon spinning attraction. You've got a small kind of pirate boat ride, some other dinosaur adventure rides. So very small flat rides, but a good mix. I mean, this is definitely more. A little bit more elaborate, or I guess in a more diversified mix of rides than I was anticipating. So I think this is going to be another good spot for families in Central Florida visiting Central Florida who may want to, kind of step away from Disney or Universal and go to a park like Peppa Pig or Legoland that's more geared just to the younger crowd.
Yeah, I think Legoland. It is adjacent, and Merlin is the operator of both of these parks. Legoland's tagline is, I think, hashtag built for kids, and you say that, but I visited the park in 2019 as a 30-year-old adult, and I was just deep rooted in the nostalgia. I loved it. As a childless 31-year-old now, I don't have any children to understand Peppa Pig and its significance in the children's zeitgeist of entertainment. I just know nobody likes Caillou, so that's really.
Oh, yes.
I can't speak to Peppa Pig and like how popular it is, but I know as enthusiasts, obviously it's a cool, like you mentioned, John, it's a really cool opportunity for Zamperla to kind of debut this new first of its kind lift and launch coaster. And we'll have to get past podcast guest Adam Sandy back on the podcast to tell us all about this ride. But I think this attraction is kind of a standalone theme park, and there's going to be a Sesame Place water park that's being built in California that was announced. I don't know. It feels like decades ago, but it was probably announced in 2019, and then it's been pushed kind of down the road a little bit. But what do you think personally is like the future of these like one-off family attractions that are adjacent or very close to pre-existing theme parks? The Sesame Place water park, this Peppa Pig area. I mean, it's very unique, and I don't know if Peppa Pig, again, as a 30-year-old or 31-year-old with no kids, I don't know how popular Peppa Pig is. I think there's a Peppa Pig land in one of the other parks that Merlin owns overseas. But what do you think about these one-off lands?
Well, it's funny. I was just looking at Peppa Pig's Wikipedia page, and the show has been renewed until 2027, which is unreal for a TV show, an animated show, to be renewed that far in advance. So obviously, the creators of this show have, data to support extending it that far in advance. So I think it definitely has that staying power. So for these franchises and these IPs like Sesame Place or Sesame Streets, and Nickelodeon, you have these parks. And I tell people that when they ask like, oh, so and so should build a theme park, and like where I'm at Nashville, there's a theme park that's been proposed, and people say, well, what do you think the likelihood of these of a park being built from the ground up? And there really haven't been many of those built successfully from the ground up, except for the ones that are tied to these IPs, like Legoland, like Nickelodeon Universe. So I think this is going to be a really great kind of like a case study or experiment for some of these more targeted, more specific, Nickelodeon, Legoland. Those are very broad, diverse brands and IPs with multiple characters, multiple shows. Peppa Pig is very focused, and so it's going to be interesting to see how a park dedicated to one specific IP like this performs. And I think it will definitely benefit from being so close to Legoland. But I think the Sesame Place, I think these are going to be the parks in the coming years that have the best chance of success being built from the ground up. I think it's going to have that tie-in to some of these IPs, ones where you've got a great merchandise opportunity to go along with it, a well-known brand. I mean, I think this is definitely going to be I think something that we see more of in the future. What about you?
I completely agree. And you were talking about the longevity of, kids TV shows. I gotta take a quick moment of silence for Arthur, which I just found out was being not renewed after like 25 years. So like,
What? I had no idea it
yes,
was still on.
I know they're apparently still putting out new episodes, but this week or last week it came out that Arthur's being canceled. But yeah, I think at its core, theme parks are built for families, and if you can kind of have that one-off half-day experience where little Billy and little Susie can go and they can ride the balloon ride and they can ride Daddy Pig's roller coaster and Grampy Rabbit's dinosaur adventure and Peppa's pedal bike tour and George's tricycle trail, all these things that I don't understand the references to. There are probably countless families who travel the Central Florida area. And when I visited Legoland, I remember writing the article, it's kind of like this hidden gem when you think of your Central Florida theme parks. Obviously, you have your Disneys and your Universals and your SeaWorld and fun spots. But, 45 minutes to an hour south of the city, you've got a great family property that is perfect for families, and it's close enough where if you've got kids and you're traveling to the area, you can certainly take like a day trip down there and selfishly, I did it for the roller coasters. And when you walk into Legoland alone behind a family of kids, they kind of look at you a little bit funny. Not really, but you ride Coastersaurus and the Dragon and Flying School and the Great Lego Race. And you walk around and like I said, you're just kind of deeply rooted in that nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
These new family attractions, again, the Sesame Place water park, Peppa Pig park, even Nickelodeon Universe to an extent. I mean, it's certainly, you've got attractions that are the thrilling, the Shredder coaster and the Shell Razor at Nickelodeon Universe, and the SpongeBob Rock Bottom Plunge, but you've got these family attractions with like the Nick Jr. brands that it all goes back to family. And then if you can build some brand loyalty to Legoland or Merlin, and the season passes they're pretty affordable. I feel like, as far as theme park season passes go, I think it was like $75. I saw. I think for a splash pad, a couple of rides, it'll be a good time, and I think families traveling to the area are going to love it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and one thing that you said about a half day, I think that's another selling point too, because a lot of these families with younger kids, a full day at Magic Kingdom is very taxing on smaller kids. I mean, I know a lot of times you can go back to the hotel and take a break, but especially for locals, I think that's another added benefit, is that you're not necessarily having to commit a full day to get the full experience. You can spend half a day and hit a lot of these rides and get a good feel too. So I think that it's not as overwhelming um, of a day. It's definitely something that's more doable, especially for that younger demographic that this park is geared toward.
Yeah. And then the last bit of news I want to talk about this week, not actually something we wrote about, but the Carnival Mardi Gras is giving its first, or hosting its first passengers. I think there was a media preview late last week. But on top of the decks of the Carnival Mardi Gras, and there's a really good photo that BioReconstruct. And if you're not following BioReconstruct on Twitter, you should do that right now. Stop what you're doing, pause this podcast at BioReconstruct on Twitter. Amazing photo of the top of the ship, but it's got the first roller coaster at sea. It's a spike coaster from Mauer, and I can't, once cruising becomes more of a normal thing, and I can get down to a cruise and not have to worry about what's going on in the world, I hope to really get on the Carnival Mardi Gras. I think this is going to be I don't want to call it the first cruise ship intended for coaster enthusiasts, but with this spike coaster on board, I think it'll be certainly a target. It'll be one of those very difficult, the cost per credit. I think we've talked about that before on the website. It's like that could be the highest cost per credit anywhere.
Yep, $15. Well, for the just one, obviously you have to get on board, which is its own expense. But yeah, absolutely. But I think just I've never had any desire to go on a cruise. I know I'm very much in the minority there, and I should probably absolutely go on one, like you said, once the world is in a little better place. But definitely, if I were to go on one, it would be this one. I mean, what a I mean, it's insane. I never in a million years, they've got water slides, like, okay, but just the thought of a roller coaster on a cruise ship, and I'm looking at this picture again, it looks like a little amusement park on the top of this cruise ship. It's unreal. I mean, it is. I can't wait to hear what people think about it, and I hope, assuming it's successful, that we see more of these. More of this coaster in general on land or ship. It's exciting. This is the type of innovation that I think is what really keeps me so attached to the industry. Because if you had told me 5-10 years ago that there was going to be a roller coaster on the top of a cruise ship, I would have laughed in your face. And here we are. So this is exciting.
The internet may come for us because obviously it's not a roller coaster in the traditional sense. you control your speed, and there's grooves on the track, and there's a couple of really good articles on the website to shamelessly plug ourselves here. But we've done interviews with Carnival Cruise Line. We've done interviews with Maurer, who are the creators of the Spike coaster. So we'll link those in the show notes, but be sure to go check those out. I need to get back on a cruise, and John, I understand that cruising's not for everybody, but between, the sitting by the pool, going to a new place every day, all the food you can eat, the fact there's a roller coaster, and the fact that I'm a gambling degenerate and there's a casino that you can access in international waters, I need to get back on a cruise. And that's just like you said, this roller coaster is certainly enticing me right now, for sure.
Absolutely. Yep. It's going to be very exciting to see what people think of it.
Well, before we wrap this up, John, anything else you want to talk about as it relates to Coaster 101? Anything we've got coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, so I think we've got lots of content. I'm actually going to LA in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to meet up with our California-based writer, San Francisco-based writer Eric, and we're going to hit all the parks down there. So Six Flags, Knott's, Disneyland. I'm going to try on the West Coast to get in a Rise of the Resistance boarding group. I did not have any luck with that last October at Hollywood Studios. So going to Disneyland for 2 days. So second or third time is a charm, hopefully. And then also going to Universal for the first time. So I'm very excited about that. So there'll be lots of content coming from that in a couple of weeks. And another shameless plug for us, we are just in the kind of the early stages of looking for some new writers to join the team. We've got some geographic areas of the country that we are looking to get some presence in. And so that would be, Texas, the Northeast. Can always use, we've got Mike in Florida. He could definitely use some help with all of the activity going on in Central Florida. And then really anywhere. We're not limiting it necessarily to those areas, but definitely would like to get some boots on the ground in some of those areas where we do not have anyone right now. But then we're also looking for other people. I mean, we are looking for some social media folks to help us, especially with some of those up and coming platforms like TikTok. I think there's a great opportunity there to connect with some of our readers in the parks, videographers. So if you have any skill set that you think could be put to good use on the website, then we are really excited to talk to you. So if you're interested in reading more about those opportunities and kind of what it's like to write for the Coaster 101 team, join the Coaster 101 team, you can go to coaster101.com/join and read more about who we're looking for. And again, some of those benefits that come with joining the team. And one of the greatest are the friends that we've made. So Andrew, the rest of the crew, it's really cool how we are all, started as internet friends, and then we have all these meetups. And so it's a really great opportunity, and really excited to hopefully bring on some new folks in the coming months. So again, coaster101.com/join, and you can get all the information there.
Yeah, I know. I personally, it's been almost 8 years at this point, but I found Coaster 101 with our annual photo contest, which I think, John, you mentioned is coming up
Yes.
in the coming weeks as well. So it's what started as a photo of Loch Ness Monster taken on my old iPhone, like my Generation 1 iPhone, has now kind of just morphed into this passion project that we all share. And, as some random internet commenter on a Facebook post a couple years ago said, and then they deleted it, so we don't know how they actually feel about it. We're just a normal group of individuals. We're a normal looking group of individuals, which apparently is pretty rare in the coaster enthusiast fandom. I'm not saying yes or no to that, but yeah, we're all good friends. The chats we have outside of this podcast there's some good inside jokes here that, if you join the team, you'll eventually become a part of. I feel like that'll be the best way to put it. We're not going to talk about the picture from Holiday World with the lady towing a stroller with her electric wheelchair. Anyway,
Yeah,
inside.
we have a lot of fun, lots of laughs. It's a good group. So definitely,
Yeah.
if you're interested, please go check out the website, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. As John said, check us out on coaster101.com if you want to join the team, coaster101.com/join. If you just want to read some great articles about John's LA trips or trips to Grand Carnival or the Peppa Pig theme park or Dr. Diabolical's cliffhanger or anything really, coaster101.com. Great resource. Check that out. We're also on social media as well. We are at Coaster101 anywhere you consume the platform, and including these up and coming platforms, as John said. So we're on TikTok. We don't post anything, but maybe one day we will. We will, hopefully. If you got any questions, comments, fan mail, hate mail, send us an email, podcast@coaster101.com. And make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing. We're going to start reading iTunes reviews on this podcast. So if you want to hear your name on the show, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review or a 4-star review. Not a 4-star review, don't do that. We want to hear from you, things that we can do to make the show better, things you enjoy. We definitely want this podcast to continue to grow. So make sure you're helping spread the word and all those good things. Thanks, as always, to JM Music Design for our theme music, and we will talk to y'all again next week. See ya.